Our issues, our voices, our views. This is Politics in Black. What's happening, family? It's Sunday, and we are back for another episode of Politics in Black.
Here we go, yo. Here we go.
It's been a long 2 weeks, Friday. A lot has happened. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks.
We had some wins.
We had a big win. We got to start there. We got to start there.
Seriously, we have to shout out all of our ADOS California chapters from Northern California all the way down to San Diego. We had a phenomenal week with AB 3121.
It's law now, y'all.
Being signed by Governor Gavin Newsom. And so I just want to take a minute,
Absolutely.
honestly, to applaud and recognize from Sacramento, the Bay, out in the Inland Empire, down, like I said, in San Diego.
All north to south
north
in California. ADOS activists put in that work.
They did.
And we got the first ever reparations study bill signed into law. It's historic. It's monumental. I'm still celebrating, y'all. So don't think it was a small thing here.
And for those of you who don't think we need a commission, please understand we are following precedent. That's a precedent that has been very, very much part of our American fiber. And that commission, the California Commission, is important. The H.R. 40 Commission, even though we don't like the language, it's important, and we did it. So,
yeah. Just sit back and let us work. Just let us work. We're gonna get it right. You know what I'm saying? All right, y'all. But you know the deal. You know my name. I'm only one half your hosting team. I'm Chad Brown. Speaking just now, sitting across from me was Friday Jones, the birthday girl.
Hey, don't tell everybody. Y'all saying, see how quiet that internet was? Nobody knew a thing.
Somebody said it was Libra season. I don't know about that, though. I know, Scorpios come in at the end of the month.
Oh, my God. It's still Libra season, though. Shout out to all the Libras
right,
in the ADOS family.
Well, let's go. So today, we're going to tackle, the election is less than 23 days away, y'all. We've got what many are calling the most monumental election on the horizon in U.S. history or in our lifetimes. And so today we wanted to come to you and talk about the ADOS perspective and the ADOS strategy on down-ballot voting or down-ballot Democrat, as you heard it described. So today we wanted to first bring on an important figure here in California who played a pivotal role in crafting the language of AB 3121, and she's going to talk to us about some other ballot initiatives that we have out here in California. And then we're going to bring a very popular public figure, journalist, and media personality who also has come out and been vocal about down-ballot voting to get his perspective from the media and on a national scale. And then the second half, Friday, we got a good one in the second half.
Anytime we get to commune with fam, it's going to be a good time. So we have 8 different ADOS chapters from across the nation, from down south all the way up north to the east side of the country, trying to make sure we let you guys know what the important ballot initiatives are in your area.
That's right.
So we are going to be some of the most informed people come November 3rd, although I'm trying to get it in early. I'm trying to get mine in early, just in case my USPS people, they trying to work hard against Number 45.
Number 45. We're trying to work. Yeah,
I'm trying to get in early. I want to be counted sooner.
Amen there. But before we get started, folks, I've been told we got to like the video. We got to share the video. And if you like the content here on Politics in Black, please subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified when we go live every 2 weeks. And if you feel so inclined, if you have it in your pockets, you can hit the super chat on YouTube, or you can donate at via Cash App at AOS LA. So I'm ready, Friday. Another great show.
Let's go. Let's bring Miss Maureen in here.
Absolutely.
She's a shero.
Exactly. This is a hero out here. So coming first to Politics in Black to the podcast today, we've got Maureen Simmons. And Maureen has a unique 20-year background in human resources management, talent acquisition, and strategic planning for Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. She served as a legislative intern in the California State Assembly for Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, where she researched and drafted ACR 130, which is now known as AB 3121, which is now law. This is a resolution for reparations for the Black American descendants of slavery. She is a staunch advocate for social justice, and she facilitated a hearing on campus climate with the Assembly Select Committee on Campus Climate in November 2019. She currently serves as the co-chair for the students of Proposition 16, which we are going to talk about today. And she recently graduated from UC Berkeley. So give her a big round of applause, fam. Maureen Simmons. Welcome,
y'all make me sound good.
Girl,
well, you doing good work. You doing good work, so we can't help but make you sound good.
I know. I'm like, the fire trail is ablaze behind you, girl.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited. Excited.
Thank you. Well, we're super excited to have you, Maureen. And I think we got a great panel on the first half. So
we do. Joining you today on the panel, we have Torrin Walker, founder and editor of Context Media Group. He's a writer, journalist, social media influencer with over 50 bylines in publications, including Teen Vogue, Huffington Post, Splinter, Race Bait R. He is the producer and director of the documentary 5 Years, Mike Brown and Ferguson Now, and is currently writing a book on race, power, and culture in American society. So we want to give it up for one of our favorite blue checks over there in the Twitter sphere,
only
Mr.
one
Torrin
talking
Walker.
right. Torrin, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me onto your platform. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you again, sir, for your time. Hey, Maureen, I got to start with you because, you got flowers from Tone, but we're going to throw some flowers at you today. What you have done with AB 3121, as we all know, has changed the landscape for Black Americans in this country. It is historic, and it is something, it's a clarion call that I know was heard across the nation, that I now see other states following in that pathway, and I see the federal government having to respond and say something about what is a monumental bill that you helped craft. So I want to start there, and then we'll get to Prop 16. But just quickly, could you walk us through, because you were an intern, if I'm correct, right? 8-week intern, and you drafted what is going to be a viewed historically as a very important bill for Black Americans. Talk us through that, just how that came to be.
Yeah. So you actually got that right. I was interning for 8 weeks in the California State Assembly last summer. And during that 8-week internship, I was asked by the legislative director what I wanted to get out of the internship. And I'm not a typical intern. As you read in my bio, I come with a really broad background, really robust history in workers' compensation, in human resources. And in human resources, I've had over 20 years of drafting corporate policy. So I use that experience as like a backdrop. When I got into the State Assembly, I'm kind of looking around and saying, okay, I want to be able to do something really substantial. I don't want to answer phones. I don't want to do something where I'm just sitting here for 8 weeks, because I was working for 8 weeks free. So I thought, what can I do that's really substantial? And I had a really great conversation. The legislative director was so awesome, Mr. Anthony DiMartino. I told Anthony that my aspirations were reparative justice and restorative justice. And that's really why I came back to college so late in life. It's specifically for the ADOS community. Before I even knew that it was ADOS, right? Yeah. I just learned of the acronym last summer, but I was riding for our community before I knew the acronym. Amen. And so I knew of Antonio and Yvette, and when I was given the opportunity to craft what I thought would be, legislation, I don't think they knew at the time it would be legislation. They weren't prepared for me to come with Antonio Moore and Dr. Darity.
You snuck up on him is what I'm hearing. You snuck up on him.
Yeah, they weren't really prepared for that. And plus I had, I went to UC Berkeley, which is a really great institution for research. And so I had a lot of research, and they didn't know. Yeah. So in 8 weeks, I dropped a lot of stuff on them. I think I was in my third week. So really it was like from the third week on that I began to really work on this reparations bill. And at that, they were just so impressed. Dr. Weber was so impressed. They saw the energy. And when I got Antonio on the phone, Dr. Darity on the phone, that sealed it for me, because once they gave me the, we're not really sure about this, but they gave me a semi-green light at that particular point, because it was not a bill or it wasn't anything. It was my idea, my brainchild. And so I have to thank Antonio Moore for rocking with me. Absolutely. And Dr. Darity, because I was an intern, and they didn't know that this is where we would be a year later.
So you are an example. to America of when we are uninterrupted, what we are able to do.
Unapologetic.
And
Absolutely.
unapologetic in who we are. Amazing.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible story, Maureen. And so we just thank God for you. We thank God for the work you did. And I want everybody to hear it. She did it as an intern for free, y'all. So don't think that you
in 8 weeks.
In 8 weeks, yeah. In 8 weeks. So let's give her a hand. If you see her, please buy her a drink, get her a coffee, whatever she needs. All right.
I say that too. I always say that I'm actually headed to law school to become a legislative attorney, because I said, man, if I did that in 8 weeks as an intern, where I just had really novel understanding of legislation. I was, pretty green with legislation at that point. So I'm like, wow, what will I do when I have some years under my belt? I always say, I told you this, Chad, we will get reparations in this generation.
Yes.
With you at the helm, I have no doubt.
Yes,
I got
indeed.
no doubt.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Down ballot. Now, us ADOS people, we have taken some heat. Ooh, we have taken a lot of heat for promoting in this election the concept of down ballot voting. But for you have been one of the people who has been vocal about the down ballot strategy. And it's not just a strategy. I think for you, it's more of a response to just the environment we are in. So talk to us a little bit about why you think the time is now to bring in the down ballot vote for the presidential election.
Well, there's a classic saying that all politics is local. And I think that in this particular election, that phrase is going to be more important than ever because, regardless of how you feel about the presidential side of politics, everything that affects your life is going to be on the state, local, and regional level. And regardless of whoever's in the White House, if you can move people who have the same policy that you have into local elections, into judgeships, into city council, in city council seats, governor's seats, senator seats, you can direct whatever the policy of the party you pick goes, regardless of who's in the House. That's one part of it. The second part of it is the outreach to Black voters in 2020 has been pandering at best and condescending at worst.
Terrible.
And this year they picked two candidates who really don't resonate with a very large number of African American voters. Even if you take out some of the pandering that they're doing right now, if you look at their records, the records speak for themselves. So, but I don't think, regardless of what their records are, I don't think people should disassociate themselves from the process. They need to learn how the process works, and they need to be active about getting people who have the same politics that are going to benefit African Americans outside of pandering and optics into elected office. And there are a lot of people down ballot in local and state and representative elections that are really interesting people who need to be looked at. So I think so much of the focus in the media is on the big stories like the debates and, national and presidential elections that we take advantage. We don't really pay attention to local elections, and those are very important. I think the media doesn't do it, and I think a lot of the electorate doesn't do that as well, and that's important.
Yeah, Tori, and you bring up a great point about media coverage. And going back to what Maureen was talking about with AB 3121, one of the things that shocked me is that we saw almost no media coverage from some of our, historically Black institutions, from the Congressional Black Caucus. It was widely ignored. And as we just said, this is one of the most historic bills that we've seen in our lifetimes, perhaps since the Civil War. So I want to get your perspective, being in the media, because you just talked about how the coverage has been mostly pandering, the outreach has been mostly pandering. How do you feel the media has done in contextualizing Black America and our vote?
They have done a very poor job. That's when they even address it at all. And as far as what the way the media frames this is, they really have what they love to do is they go back and they love to go into the past. They love to go with this line like, your ancestors died for your right to vote,
yep.
Which is incorrect. That was a part of the process from the 1870s up until the 1960s. But our ancestors were dying for the right to be free human beings. They weren't about it. Voting was a part of that process, but it wasn't the be all and end all. And you can't really move people in 2020 with images from the 1960s. You have to speak to people's concerns who are living and breathing right now and talk about why they should go out and vote. Outside of saying that Trump is the boogeyman, and say, why should I vote for this candidate? Yep. What can I get out of, what will my community, what will my neighborhood, and what will my family get out of voting for this candidate, the same way that every other group in this country does? And I think the media has really not touched on that, because if they were to touch on that, they'd have to address the fact that why are some of these people who are running right now that have been in office for 20 and 30 years not done these things before now?
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, Maureen, coming with Proposition 16 now.
Which is down ballot.
Which is down ballot.
Yep.
And with, I think, the idea of young people, with students for Proposition 16. I think that's very important. I know there was Jenny, I forget her last name, but she's running down in San Diego, and I think that she's running for District 70. Cutler, I think, or Cutter is her last name. She had a forum, and with some people from the assembly, from the state assembly, on Proposition 16, and they were vehemently against this particular piece of legislation. Talk to us about how students decided to get behind it, because I think for people like Jenny down there in San Diego, who's running for District 70, there is some sort of disconnect, I think, in terms of what the perception is and what the reality is.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, for making space for us to talk about Proposition 16. I was celebrating AB 3121, and then at the same time trying to campaign for Proposition 16, because I actually started the campaign of Proposition 16 last year on the campus of UC Berkeley. And the reason that I started that campaign is because I looked at the inequities of Black students in the UC system. At the time that I was a student at UC Berkeley, we represented 1.9% of the student population. That's roughly less than 800 students out of 40,000. So we looked at not only our racial inequities that we face, but when you're in a classroom where you have hundreds of other students and you're the one voice for the entire Black race, that got really draining. So at the time, we were really looking at it from a very practical standpoint of, listen, we want to have more Black professors, and we were told that we could not hire more Black professors because they could not discriminate and target Black professors to see, to answer that need. And on every single point that we brought up, we were told that Proposition 209 prohibited any sort of redress because it would mean that they would have to target their efforts to a certain demographic, and they couldn't do that. So when I heard that enough, I said, okay, this is like really simple to me. Let's just repeal Prop 209. At the time, I had no idea really the magnitude of that. Again, I'm coming from a corporate background where when there are issues, we just fix them. Yeah. I am not a political person per se. I'm learning politics over the last couple of years. And so I went back to my relationship with Dr. Shirley Weber's office and began to talk about some of the issues we were facing and what could we do legislatively to address these issues. And ACA 5 was born out of that. And then now we're here with Prop 16. There are a lot of misconceptions about what Prop 16 will do and what it won't do. One of the misconceptions is that people think that Proposition 16 will be a piece of legislation that will be a quota system, that all of a sudden there's going to be this influx of unskilled, unqualified people in our public employment, public contracts, and public education. That could not be further from the truth. And one of the things that we've attacked in this campaign is the very notion of that ideology is racist in and of itself. And that's exactly the types of racist rhetoric and racist and systemic racism that we're aiming to eradicate, because as much as we'd like to believe that we're in a post-racial society, we are not. We understand when we look at just the racial inequities in the UC system, and it's not just UC Berkeley, it's across all 9 UCs. And we see that, and that has been for the last 25 years since Proposition 209 was enacted in 1996. So those that oppose, they always point to this system of meritocracy. That's code for pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And we understand in a racist society that those of us that have come through the lineage and through systemic racism undergirded by white supremacy that goes all the way back to chattel slavery. We don't have the pull yourself up by your bootstraps opportunities because of systemic oppression has kept us from the boots and the straps.
That's right.
Right. And so, Proposition 16 is definitely a proposition that is extremely important for the ADOS community. I can't stress enough how important it is for ADOS community in particular, because it would mean that any recruitment efforts and employment contract and admissions can be targeted. At this point, they don't have to target us. They don't have to recognize that we are being left out of those particular industries and instances. And so that just harms us. And we've been harmed for 25 years. This would unravel that.
Amen. Now, you preaching here, Maureen. You preaching. No, because Prop 16, I want folks to understand, if you're voting in California and you're down ballot voting, Prop 16 is something that you need to be. It's a major one. It's a major one.
And
you
we
need
are
to be focused on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Torrin, I wanted to come back to you just really quickly, because as Friday said, you put out a message of down ballot, and you've been following the ADOS movement. You let us know that for about 18 months or so. I'd like to get kind of your perspective on, from the media, how are they viewing the ADOS movement, our down ballot initiatives, and then could you talk to me a little bit about how you came to down ballot, as that is the solution, that is the strategy that you wanted to pursue?
Well, to answer your first question, I think the mainstream media isn't really giving the ADOS movement much attention at all. And when there is attention, I think what's happening is there's sort of like this idea that the ADOS movement is sort of a separatist movement away from the majority of Black people. And I think that's a mistake. And I also feel like what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of this idea that it's about trying to create something that's going to benefit a specific group of Black people in America and nobody else. As far as down ballot voting, I think a lot of the mainstream media is trying to stay away from that, or they're not really interested in having those conversations, because there are so many initiatives and there are so many candidates who are popular in local elections and also in certain communities. And to take attention off that, talking about them and giving them a lot of play would take attention away from their money crop, which is basically the national election, the debates, the Trump versus Biden versus Pence versus Kamala Harris. They're not going to really address that right now because those stories make money. Yeah. Those stories pull in ratings. Those stories pull in sponsorships. They know everybody's going to tune in for it, even if it's just to see a train wreck like we saw a couple of days ago. Yeah. So I think what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to go into like independent media, and you're going to have to look out for people who are really interested in telling stories that affect communities outside of the national community. And the only way I see that really happening is building relationships with people who are willing to do that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to really see a lot of that in mainstream cable news media. You're going to have to the sources. Every city has either if it's a digital radio station or somebody with a SoundCloud link, but those people have reach, and you're going to have to find those people there, and that's how you're going to have to build that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great strategy.
So this question kind of goes for both of you, for Maureen and for Torrin. With regards to structural racism, I think Proposition 16 and the reason and the need for it really is indicative of how structural racism has even been built into what some of the civil rights legislation, in that it also created a way for us to no longer say that we have, as Black people, have civil rights violations. It almost makes it harder. So when it comes to like the Electoral College, particularly with the presidential election, can we talk a little bit about the Electoral College and what structural racism is built into it? Because prior to Trump winning in 2016, he was very adamant about dismembering the Electoral College. However, when he won the Electoral College and not the popular vote, he's been fairly silent.
No, he loved it.
He's been silent on it. That's how he won. And we know in other prior races, like the Electoral College has not been the popular vote. But now we're a larger nation. We're not sort of separated with religious interests sort of taking a majority. There's enough sort of diversity within our society where the republic is protected in a one-on-one vote. So can you guys talk a little bit about the Electoral College, how it ties into this down-ballot strategy?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's important that whenever we talk about politics in any way, I always say that we have to really look at the root of what we're talking about. So often when we talk about elections and when we talk about politics, we like to look at it from a contemporary standpoint. And while I'm all for that, I also like to look at historically what has happened in this country. So when we're talking about electoral colleges, we have to look at the fact that these are people, most often than not, because we've seen how our elections go, that are undergirding the very systems that are impeding our success and advancement in the first place, right? So anything that's going to be birthed out of this system of white supremacy is not going to be good for us. We see that with this current election, of course, President Trump was against the Electoral College because he thought that it was harmful to him. Right. Once he found out, like, hey, okay, this is really a good thing. I'm okay. I survived this. Then he's fine with it. We know that, unless we have a stake, and here's what I will say. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say, okay, if we're going to have this Electoral College, which I think should be undone, but let's pretend we still want to have it, then I think there should be equity on who's on the Electoral College, right? Who are these people? And it should be equity in who they're representing, because we know they're certainly not representing the voices of the Black community at all. I don't believe so.
I want to piggyback on Maureen's point. If we're talking about the history of the Electoral College, we have to go into the history of how it's applied. Mm-hmm. There was an issue in, I think, 1787, I believe. My math might be off, my dates might be off, but people talk about how the Electoral College is processed now. People don't realize that the Electoral College, as we know it in the present day, came out of the 3/5 compromise. Yes. because Southern states wanted to have more electoral votes, but they did not want to count African Americans, which were enslaved at the time, as full human beings. Because if they counted them as full human beings, the Electoral College would give more votes to the South. So they said that we will count shadow slaves as 3/5 of human beings. That's where the 3/5 compromise came out of. And a lot of that attitude, a lot of those ideas are still prevalent in the idea of an Electoral College. Because what we have right now, we don't have representative democracy. We sort of have indirect elections. Once you vote, your votes are tallied by the electors that are elected by Congress. If they get to Congress and they pick the president. A lot of people don't really understand how the Electoral College works. Mm-hmm. It kind of gives people who are the general public the idea that if you go and you pull a lever, that your vote counts, and it does count, but it does not count in presidential elections. And the Electoral College is a direct barrier to that, and it needs to be abolished. That's a great point, Tori. And I think that even feeds into why we must be looking at a down-ballot strategy in this election and using our power to the extent we can to try to compel our representatives to offer us true transformational policies in exchange for our voting capital. So we've got just a few more minutes here. I wanted to let you both chime in just on down ballot one more time, because some of the pushback that we hear in opposition is, oh, down ballot voting, you're suppressing the vote, or it's a vote for Trump. So I wanted to give both of you just an opportunity to respond to those common oppositions that we hear. I think it's really insulting to a voter's intelligence to tell them that down ballot voting or voting down ballot outside of the presidential election is a vote for Trump. People who are going to vote for Trump are going to vote for Trump regardless of what anybody who's not going to vote for Trump is going to do. And I think it's really disingenuous to tell people that you have to focus all your energy on the presidential election without paying attention to the rest of it, because you're not going to see Trump or Biden walking down your street. Mm-hmm. You can go find who your representative, you can find out who your congressperson is. You can find out who your representative is. You can look at things that are on the ballot that are going to affect your community and pay attention to those. I think there's an idea that if you have an issue with the two presidential candidates, then you're opting out of the process. And I think that needs to be removed. And I think the media needs to do a much better job of informing the public about what's at stake in these elections outside of just going for the things that are going to pull in ratings. Yeah. I just think it's a very disingenuous argument. And I think it doesn't do the country or it doesn't do the voting public any service. Facts. Maureen, come to you and allow you to respond to the same question.
So I agree with that. And I think that we need to definitely pay particular attention to down ballot. After I did a little bit of research before this show, and after 2008, after Obama's election, Democrats lost almost 1,000 seats in their state legislatures across the United States. And that's pretty significant because, and I think it was in 2008, the Koch brothers donated $400 million to 75 state races, actually in Texas alone. So they have an opportunity to flip an entire state. So while we're looking at the dancing ball that's happening nationally with the presidential election, you have people that are investing their dollars in state elections, and that's really going to impact your life to a much greater degree in some cases than the presidential election. So you definitely, because you don't want to fall for this plurality vote that says that you have to vote for the lesser of two evils, you want to opt out of that, that's fine. However, you do want to pay attention to who's going to be on your county commission, who's going to be on your school board, who's up for, running for sheriff. Pay attention to those local elections because those are going to be people that will have policies that will impact you. In California this year, we have 13 ballot measures, and you want to pay attention to all of those because they're dealing with taxes. They're dealing with, if you have any family, friends, or know of anyone that had felonies, it's dealing with felony convictions and suffrage and right to vote, right to vote for those that are 17 years old. And so it's all of these things that are, really important. And so I tell people, even if you don't want to vote for the national election, there's a whole gamut of things that you really want to educate yourself on and vote down ballot. And I think that there's a great disservice in this country. And I want to echo what Terrain said. It's a disservice that we're forced into this vote for someone that's against your interests. Currently, right now, I think there are so many of us that feel that there's no one on the presidential ticket that represents our interest. And so, however, you might look down ballot and notice that there's someone running in the Senate. They're going to control what happens in your state, but they also are going to control that congressional voice for you. So you want to make sure that you are looking very intently at your ballots. If you have not gotten your ballots yet, because early voting started in California October 5th. If you have not gotten your ballot yet, go to ballotpedia.com. Check out what's on the ballot. You can also check out the Secretary of State in California at sos.ca.gov, and you can type in your name, your address, and find out what's going to be on your ballot. And please educate yourself. If you opt out of dealing with that circus of a national election, I feel you. I'm there with you. But please vote down ballot. I know awesome. I want you to vote yes on Prop 16, or I'm going to be real upset with you.
Thank you so much. You both have been fantastic guests, wealth of information. Torin, can we get your social media handles so our followers can follow you?
Absolutely. You can find me at Torin Walker at Twitter, TORRAINE WALKER at Twitter. And you can also reach out to Context Media Group. The website is Context Media Group. You can also find me Context Media GRP on Twitter. I'm on Twitter more than I probably should be, but that's where you'll find me.
All right. And Maureen, your social media?
My social media, I am Ms. SQ, MZ_ESQ on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. Look for them in the social media world. Thank you both so much.
Fam.
We are going to take a quick commercial break.
That was fire.
That was definitely fire.
Yeah, we'll be right back, folks. Don't go nowhere.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
Yeah. All right.
I like that theme music. That's pretty hard.
Maybe you want to spit some bars.
I know, right? You know, it's a straight. You know, they from LA. That's a straight West Coast beat.
Yeah. If my knee was so messed up, I'd get him to start crip walking.
What's happening, family? We are back from break. Once again, this is Politics in Black, brought to you by ADOS Los Angeles. And just as a quick reminder, please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you like the content here. Hit us on the Super Chat and hit us on Cash App at AOSLA. That helps us keep this coming to you.
And we like to bring y'all a quality professional show.
Absolutely. So before we get into the second segment, fam, just had a quick promo on some best practices for voting this year. And as everyone knows, we're less than 23 days away from what many are calling the most important election in U.S. history. And as Yvette Carnell says, politics is an exchange, not a gift.
That's right.
So to date, neither one of the parties has specifically addressed the ADOS community or offered us a targeted black agenda centering reparations. Therefore, it is ADOS's position that on November 3rd, black Americans show up to the polls in record numbers across the U.S. and vote down ballot. We want to make sure every ADOS down ballot votes get counted. So a couple of tips. Number one, make sure you're registered, fam. Several states' deadlines to register are in early October right now. You can check your registration status and get registered at www.vote.org. Number two, request and return your ballot early. It's COVID, y'all. Still COVID. The United States Postal Service is jam-packed. Make sure you get your ballots back in early. Give them time to process those. If you're going to be dropping your ballot off into a ballot box, make sure it's an official box. Don't just put it in a cardboard box with a slot in it. Make sure that's an official voting location that is accepting ballots. And number three, make sure you read and closely follow the instructions on completing your ballot. Black or blue pen only. No markers. We don't want any bleed through ballots, right? And finally, do your research. Do your research on what's down your ballot. And you can find information on all your down ballot initiatives and referendums at www.ballotready.org. That's www.ballotready.org. We're going to vote down ballot, and we got to get counted, y'all.
And I'm going to throw this in here. This wasn't on Chad's promo over there, but we have said right in ADOS, but do not disqualify your ballot by not understanding what the rules are in your state. If writing ADOS in on a particular line or candidate is going to invalidate that particular vote or the entire ballot, do not do it. Make sure you understand what you can and cannot do according to your state's voter registration guidelines.
That's fact.
So we want to get our ADOS party started as usual. I could hear them in the chat, in the room, talking and having their own party before we brought them in live.
The fam came through today.
They came through, and so we have from ADOS Ohio, Mr. Mark Stevenson. Welcome to Politics in Black.
Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you.
Going through.
We have Mr. Tyrone Polk Davis out of ADOS NYC. Welcome, Tyrone.
Hey, what's going on, family? Glad to have me on.
Thank you for being here. We have Marshall Parson from ADOS DMV.
All right, Marshall.
All right, everybody. How y'all doing? Hope everybody's
We have the wonderful Miss Kelly Pryor from ADOS Las Vegas.
All right,
Kelly. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Thank you for having me.
And then coming in from ADOS Detroit, we have Gerard Page.
Hey, what up, Joe? What's happening, y'all?
What's going on, Gerard? And then the chef himself from ADOS Mississippi, Leo Carney.
How you guys doing? How y'all doing?
Good to see you, Chef. From ADOS Chicago, we have Arthur Ward.
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
How you doing, Arthur? Thanks for being here today. And then finally, from ADOS Houston, we have Michael Brown. Woo-hoo. Welcome back again, Michael.
Hey, fam.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, family. Good to see everyone. We're going to try to get to everybody, let you talk about some local initiatives to where you are. But I got to start with Mississippi. I got to start with the chef because the chef's been down there cooking up in the Black Belt. I see what you're doing, chef, and we see you with your local reparations work. So I wanted to start with you. And I believe it was ballot measure 2 was one of the measures that you were talking about locally there in Mississippi that you're focused on. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Ballot measure 2 is a part of two ballot measures, ballot measure 2 and 3. But ballot measure 2 removes a requirement that any candidate who's running for governor or state office has to receive the highest number of votes in a majority of our state's 122 House districts, and that it requires a runoff. What this bill does now, it requires a runoff instead of the election having to be chosen by a House vote by our Mississippi House, which is a supermajority right now. We have a supermajority of Republicans in the House and in the Senate. So this ballot measure would pretty much neutralize that aspect and take it away from the House having to choose, or these restrictions being put on somebody to have to come up with the majority of the votes in 122 districts. It does, so it's an old Reconstruction law that is finally going to be put to rest.
Yeah, that's important work right there.
And that's what you call structural. That thing has lived on since Reconstruction and has been impeding progress for centuries at this point.
Yeah, so you're doing great work down there, Chef. Getting that one up out of here if we can.
So that's a yes vote in Mississippi on ballot measure number 2.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's on ballot measure number 2, and ballot measure number 3 is another removal of our state flag, the Confederate flag emblem from our state flag.
We still trying to get that Confederate flag.
They're the only losers that get to win. Like I have never.
Fam. All right, but we gonna get it this time. I know we gonna get it.
We're gonna get it out of there. We're gonna get it out of here.
And lastly, Chef, before we move on, you got a hot race down there between Sidney Hyde-Smith and Mike Espy. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Real quickly, Mike Espy, I've ADOS Mississippi, we contacted him on 2 occasions, 2 town halls. The first town hall, we spoke about Senate Bill 1083, and that bill is a companion bill to HR 40. And so at first he said he didn't support a cash payment reparations bill, but when we spoke to him again here recently, he said that he would go ahead and support that bill.
All right.
And so
way to put that pressure on. Yeah.
I know we're a bipartisan group, and so we're just trying to reach both sides, but Mike Espy seems like he's going to be the person that's going to go ahead and try to get that work done for us once he wins.
Got it. That's that work, Chef.
That's right. Keep that pressure on.
Keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure on.
Let's take it over to D-Town. Gerard, I see you all have. We might as well stay with the number 2. You have a proposal 2, also that you wanted to bring to the attention of our ADOS voters over in D-Town. Talk to us a little bit about that. Ballot measure.
That's the state of Michigan measure.
Yeah, right? State of Michigan. So this proposal is statewide, and basically it's a proposed constitutional amendment to require a search warrant to access a person's electronic data or electronic communications. It'll prohibit unreasonable searches or seizures of a person's electronic data and electronic communications. So basically, the cops will not be able to go into your phone and go through your phone without getting a search warrant. It'll be treated just much as like a house or won't violate your Fourth Amendment rights.
Yeah, sounds like we a big
so
yes on that one.
We're saying to our people yes for that
Absolutely,
one. That was easy.
Yeah, exactly. And talk to us a little bit about the local in Detroit, the proposal in. I believe that's a bond measure.
Okay, so that one's a little bit more involved. So with proposal in, what that's basically the Duggan administration, this is their second bite at the apple. They actually had tried to get a measure through that was the city council voted against, basically raising $250 million via bonds for demolition. So the current hardest hit funds that the Obama administration had, meant for people to, secure their homes and things of that nature. Somehow it was a portion of that was allotted to home blight and housing demolition. So that fund is gone. So that $258 million is gone. There's still a bunch of homes that are blighted and still need to be removed. The Detroit Land Bank, which is a quasi public private entity, actually controls or administers the demolition of the homes, which is a problem. Currently, they have 22,000 vacant homes that they are 100% in control of. The total estimate is 50,000 in the city of Detroit. Wow. Most of this has happened due to the recession and due to, the subprime crisis. People, were basically kicked out of their homes because of the subprime crisis and so on and so forth. Foreclosures, these homes now are abandoned because of that. So the second bite of the apple is now to make it a ballot measure, right? And take it to the people. And they are asking for another $250 million, but this time will be the citizens of Detroit. They basically, the overall cost, though, was supposed to be 30 years while these bonds would be actually put out for. By the time that the total debt on that 250 would be 240 million. Yeah. So now we're saying a total price will be 490 million total. Yep. They're only targeting 16,000 homes, 8,000 of it to be torn down, 8,000 to be quote unquote rehabilitated. But really the real thing is that they're only stabilizing the homes that can be saved. Okay. So like if it's the roof is patching, they're going to put on better enclosure to the home than plywood is currently, right? Okay. But in essence, though, they're just holding off until they can actually get someone to purchase the home. And on average, these rehabs on these homes are about $100,000. Okay. Yeah. So the problem we have is that, one, that you're putting the burden back onto the citizen to do this when it was actually the government's fault for allowing, when these foreclosures were happening and going forth, not to go after the banks who actually owned the homes at that time, or the speculators that bought homes in large amounts of prices, because during the time from 2009 and forward, all the way until maybe like a couple of years ago, we had a real bad foreclosure problem here in Detroit, the greatest in the nation. Yeah. So, instead of going after them and you're asking the city, the citizens to do this program.
That's tax money. Yeah, that's tax money.
Exactly.
So that's going to be a no on Detroit's too.
That's a no. Yeah, it's many reasons why we say no. I didn't even finish it all, but ultimately we're saying no to that.
No, we got you. We got you. No, we got to protect our neighborhoods and make sure that we're not bearing the burden of repairing the damage that's been inflicted on us. So I hear you 100%.
That's right. And we're going to hop over to as a theme. So we're going to hop over to Ohio.
What's up, Mark? Come on in here.
Mark Stevenson, tell us about your ballot measure number 2. Number 2 is a hot number.
Okay. All right. So issue 2 here is an actual local ballot initiative. It's in Columbus, Ohio. It's actually to establish a civilian review board as an independent review board to monitor police misconduct. Now, the city has been fighting this for 40 years. Like, the citizens have been asking this for 40 years, and finally it becomes a ballot measure after the uprising behind George Floyd. We had a lot of protests going on here in the city. We had a few politicians that got pepper sprayed by the police officers during that uprising. It was real bad. So the citizens are asking for it. The mayor actually could have took action on it a while ago. We had a task force come into Columbus a few years ago and do what we considered a matrix report that said that they thought that this is something that they should have implemented. Well, that was in 2016. Here in 2020, it finally becomes a ballot measure. So instead of the mayor actually doing his job and actually going ahead and getting with city council and doing this, they decided to put it in the hands of the voters. So we're supporting it. The only thing that we're monitoring is who actually is going to be appointed to this civilian review board. And we want to make sure that it ain't, we ain't got some people in there trying to get some butter biscuits and all that. So we're going to be kind of watching this, make sure that issue isn't is taken up on. So we're ballot issue.
ADOS in support of too, but there's more work to do once we get that ballot.
Yeah. We need a civilian review board. We need it to pass, and then we'll work on fixing all that stuff once we get it passed. But we need the citizens of Columbus to actually go ahead and check yes on issue 2, so that way we can move forward and keep legislating and keep advocating, get some things changed.
Got it. And you've got another interesting race, Mark, that I just want to touch on quickly for the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court. So you got Sharon Kennedy, who's a Republican, going up against John O'Donnell, who's the Democrat. Real quick, in about a minute, tell us about that race and what's important for ADOS to know.
Okay, so this race is really interesting, right? So shout out to ADOS Cleveland. They're actually endorsing Sharon Kennedy. And the reason why is because back in 2012, we had a issue with John O'Donnell, who's the Democratic he's the Democratic nominee for the Supreme Court. Well, he had an opportunity to prosecute some cops, and he let them off the hook. There actually was a documentary. It was called 137 Bullets. That's because when the cops got into this police chase, they shot into a car with homeless people that were in it and shot it 137 times.
Wow. So
he had an opportunity to prosecute these police officers for, a grave misjudgment, and he did not do it at all.
Yeah.
So
that's
here
right
in Ohio,
yeah,
we're not supporting him. He's been trying to get back on, back in the courts for a while now.
Yeah.
And we are completely against him whatsoever. So we are going with the Republican in that Supreme Court seat, Sharon Kennedy, and that's the way we.
As we say,
down ballot matters, and ADOS is nonpartisan. It's about who can serve our community the best.
What's your black agenda?
Right. So we are with that in Ohio, and thank you for that's a significant one. Let's go to housing. Housing in New York City has been problematic like forever.
Let's talk about it, Tyrone.
Let's talk about it.
Tell us about these measures: eviction moratorium, canceling the rent, and housing access voucher program. Those are three I got on my list here.
Yeah, man, those are three juggernaut bills here in New York City. For full disclosure, I'm a tenant organizer, so I do a lot of parts of Upper West Side, Harlem, still with gentrification, still a lot of us up there. Quickly, the cancel writ, that is the most controversial of all the three bills, because basically what it's implying is saying that the onus should not just be on the renters to try to figure out this housing crisis in the midst of COVID, right? It's on the state government to bail out, because how they describe it in the bill, it's a public health crisis, which is exactly what it is. That bill is very controversial. It's interesting because a lot of the people are championing these bills, and this is not to get into a whole rift with immigrants and people that are native born. What you see here in New York is the people that are really championing a progressive cause. I know we're bipartisan, we go either way, but here in New York I got to give credit to those communities, because the people are championing those bills. One of the persons championing the cancel rent bill, Taiwanese American, right? The one that's championing eviction moratorium is Dominican and Puerto Rican. Another one that's championing the housing voucher bill is actually the middle of the road Democrat, but he's championing this bill. And now back to the council rent. The reason why that's really controversial, because to be really honest, the New York Real Estate Board is huge. They donate to a lot of local and state politicians. Yeah. And I hate to call out names, but Brian Benjamin, who represents certain parts of Harlem, he has yet to sign on to these three bills. He's ADOS. He's African American. Yeah. Sadly, once again, we have Carl Hastie, who is the Speaker of the Assembly, right? Has a lot of power up in Albany, has refused to sign the bills. Another person, Andrew Stewart Cousins, who's doing my research, she looked like she's ADOS. I was digging deep to find out. That's important, right?
Who you?
She's the majority Senate leader, right? She's in the Senate. She holds a lot of power. She has yet to sign on to these bills.
So hold up. Are any of these people also up for re-election? Because I think people need to know who they are. Not in the Senate, not yet. So, okay. Remember their names, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely remember those names. But yeah, these three bills are very, very important. According to a lot of statistics, as we know, here in New York City, Black people, I know we can't disaggregate the data, but Black people in total represent 57% of the homeless population in New York City. It's a huge problem. These vouchers are going to go a long way. Yeah. And another thing I'm hearing up in Albany is that they're making a lot of excuses. They're saying, oh, because of COVID, we don't got the money. Some politicians say, oh, we got to revisit the budget. But you revisit the budget when COVID hit. They're well aware of the budget. See what I'm trying to say? So a lot of these people are playing games.
Yep.
But on a quick note, there has been a social democratic sweep here in New York City. There are 7 seats that were taken by Democratic Socialists. Mm-hmm. Also, I guess the most notable is Jabari Brissett. I know he said some kind of condescending things about ADOS, but he actually upset a huge seat, Senate seat that represents Fort Greene and Bed-Stuy. And Friday, I know you being a native New Yorker, you know all about the history.
I know hey, don't get it. Don't look. I'll be naming out streets, Gates Avenue. That's right. I'm gonna give you some streets and names and schools and everything.
Yeah, exactly. I spent a lot of time in Bed-Stuy. I'm originally from Seattle, but I've been over here for the past 10 years, getting involved in politics. I could go on and on about these.
Tyrone, I'm going to jump in here because we do want to get to the rest of the fam on the phone here. But what I'm hearing from you is this a yes on eviction moratorium, a yes on cancel writ, and a yes on housing access voucher program, down ballot in New York. Is that right?
Pretty much. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you,
brother.
Sir.
Thank you for bringing that to us. Now let's flip over to DC Digger in the DMV. Marshall, where you at?
I'm here, brother. I'm here.
All right. I know, Marshall, you wanted to say a few words about Democratic down ballot. So if you could limit that to about a minute or so, and then give us a minute on your local initiatives.
You know what? I did want to speak on it, but so many people have come on and said what I feel.
Killed it, right?
Democratic down ballot. You can't be scared of it. This is a chess move.
Absolutely.
This isn't a move about 2020. This is a move about 2024 to be perfectly honest.
That's right.
I'm going to back away from that.
All right, so talk to me about Gladys Weatherspoon then, because I know you on that train.
Yeah, Gladys Weatherspoon. Yeah. She's running for the 7th Circuit Court in the state of Maryland. Now, that encompasses Prince George's County, Charles County, Calvert County, and St. Mary's. So Friday, geographically from your alma mater, Howard University, those are the suburbs to the east and south. Okay. And the reason why this race is so important is because usually for circuit court judges, I'm not sure how it is in the rest of the country, the rest of the world, you come through a nomination process. You truly don't run. She won the Democratic ballot, and this is the first time in 50 years, the only other time was 2016, that an elected circuit court judge came through the actual election process. And so many delegates in the state of Maryland did not want her to run. They wanted to keep the same old, but she ran. We were doing trying to do some work with her early to get her to speak to a chapter before COVID hit, and then that all went away, but she won a primary, and now she's up. The reason why this circuit court judge, why this seat is so powerful, because they have a term of 15 years. I only learned about that recently. 15 years. Yeah. That is that's 4, newly elected presidents. Yeah. That's 2 senators. I mean, that's a long time in that seat. Mm-hmm. And so when you get somebody who's on the side of ADOS, who understands us and is this is what we're talking about down ballot. When those judges are in there and they see those laws and those rules that can affect us directly, that's what we need. So Gladys Weatherspoon.
Yep. 806 DMV. We're voting down ballot Gladys Weatherspoon. And the other thing I just want you to touch on, Marshall, real quick. You got a big announcement on reparations there locally. Can you just give us that real quick?
Real quick, there's the 5th Ward of Washington, D.C. There's Gentleman Councilman McDuffie. He has introduced and let me get it real quick, Chad. Yep. He's introducing a reparations task force and trying to declare racism a public health crisis in the District of Columbia.
All right.
In his public statement, in the public press release, the first part of it, the proposed measure will establish a task force to research and develop reparation proposals for African-American descendants of slavery and declare racism a public health crisis in the District of Columbia. Somebody's been going to ADOS101.com.
That's right. Amen, brother.
It's his staff to produce that, because I ain't heard that piece of language through nobody else in the country who's running, who's putting forth a reparations referendum. So we are connected somewhere, and we're working on it.
I love it.
Like that.
ADOS DMV doing that work.
That's right.
Yes, trying.
Thank you, sir. Miss Pryor,
Kelly, come
I
on
know
in here.
you have been calling on your legislators, and I know that you guys have been putting in work down there in Las Vegas. Please tell us what the Vegas ADOS voters need to know. What is the pressing down ballot measure that they must be aware of and take a stand on?
The one you sent over was number 4, state measure 4. I think that was an important one, right?
Correct. Yeah. For us, we are looking at ballot question number 4, which basically is, shall the Nevada Constitution be amended by adding a new section guaranteeing specific voting rights to all qualified and registered voters in the state? So we were at odds in our meetings, basically just trying to figure out the way it was reading. We thought that there was a difference between qualified voters and registered voters. So we didn't know if that had something to do with like an immigration issue. But after doing more research and looking at the actual Constitution, which reads like a Bible on onion paper, it basically is adding in extra measures when you vote, which should have been there in the first place. So what I suspect is going on in my research is that based on the last election with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was very upset with the state of Nevada. I don't know if anybody remembers. There was a lawsuit against the state, and they wanted to. This is when it enacted them to ask all the governors to give them actual rosters of all the voters, and the governors didn't do it. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I think that this has something to do with it. But some of the things that they list on here really quickly is that one of the extra things they're going to add to this measure is that you can vote without being intimidated, threatened, or coerced. So I don't know. It's just crazy things that already should be on this ballot, but I think they're trying to pad it just in case.
Okay.
And that's all I can say about that.
Okay. So
it sounds like it's a yes.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is voting rights. Our voting rights are on the ballot, down ballot in Vegas. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So we got to go yes there.
Awesome.
Correct.
Thank you, Kelly.
We might as well take it over to Houston, and then we will wrap with Chicago. And because of time, I need you guys to really compact.
Let's go, H-Town.
2 minutes. Let's go.
Give us 2 hot minutes. 2 hot minutes.
There was no ballot initiatives this time for Houston. I'm focusing on the Texas Supreme Court.
Okay.
We have the Supreme Court and the Criminal Court of Appeals. These are 6-year terms. Both courts have been held by Republicans. One has been held by Republicans since 1994. So the Supreme Court is dealing with your property laws and your civil cases and juvenile cases, and Criminal Court of Appeals that's dealing with death penalty cases. So we know on that side, we're 12% of the population, 13% of the population here, and 33% of the in jail, in prison population, and 44% of the people on death row. So I'm watching that race closely. I need to see some big changes on both sides. If we're going to continue to ride with the Democratic Party here as a collective group, we need to see some severe enforcement of the laws on the other side, and looking at getting rid of the death penalty, and also looking at our eviction and foreclosure rates. We had a situation, I think went viral on CNN, where they notated our eviction crisis here. That was authorized by the Texas Supreme Court. So we need to look at all of that. We need to have ADOS folks looking at all of that, looking at these judicial records, because we don't have much information on these judicial candidates.
And that is, I think, across the board and across the nation. You do not see a lot of information. That is one place where ADOS, looking into 2022 and 2024, you want to actually start screening these judges and having town halls and knowing who they are.
That's right.
Thank you so much for that, Mike.
Appreciate the work you're doing in Houston, Mike. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Arthur, let's go. Chi-Town. Illinois, what's happening in the state of Illinois?
Can I just say, Arthur, before you get started, I know one of the things on the ballot is this progressive tax, changing it from a flat tax rate. Y'all, Illinois' tax is 4.95%. I almost cried out here in California, man. Arthur, you there?
Did we lose Arthur?
Oh, man, we had a good one with Arthur.
He's on mute.
Oh, okay.
Let's get that mic up.
Okay.
There you are, brother. We got you now. Yeah, we rolling. Let's go.
You know, the reason why we need to vote yes on this amendment to remove the essentially flat taxes because the rich people in this state have been getting away with murder. We want a graduated tax that goes down as your income goes down. So that's a definite yes. The second thing that we want people to vote on is the broadband question. We want to make sure to act that ensure that all city community areas have access to broadband internet. All areas in Chicago do have broadband internet. The problem is that we don't have competition in all neighborhoods. That's what's going on.
Okay.
So, for example, in my neighborhood, we have 4 different companies that we can access. And we have some of the lowest rates in the city. But in other areas, which are primarily black, you may have access to one carrier.
Yes.
That is actually the fault of the city council, not the companies, okay? So what we want to do is stop this sweetheart dealing between certain legislators in the city council and certain companies and just open up competition in all neighborhoods.
Okay.
All right, and then the last one is the city plan for sustainability and equity, okay? The Governor Pritzker has like $30 billion from the federal government. And right now we are trying to get our piece of it to be put into black neighborhoods,
That's
okay?
right.
It's under, we also have a website, It's Hard to Be Black, which is something that came out of the governor's mouth. And we've been trying to get people to call to the governor, sign these petitions that we have online to get this done.
Okay.
So basically, that's what we're doing here in Chicago.
Okay.
Awesome work.
Great work, Arthur. Thank you for being here and bringing that to us, man.
Listen,
Yes,
we
sir.
know we got to all of our ADOS family just in one go around, but it was very important for us here at Politics in Black to do what mainstream media is not.
Yeah.
Down ballot voting for us is where we as ADOS people win. It's where we have to do our point of focus.
Absolutely.
From the judges to the DAs, to the boards of education. We got to know what the politics are of the people who are responsible for the budgets and allocation of resources to our youth and to our young people and our children. We must advocate for self. This idea that somehow down ballot voting, you got to accept the better of two evils, all of this fear-based voting from two parties that, as far as I'm concerned, have definitely failed the ADOS community, but in my opinion have also failed America at large.
Amen.
The Democratic Party and the Republican parties both need to do better. This two-party monopoly where white supremacy wins no matter what is absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely.
So that's where we are in 2020. ADOS supports down ballot voting. I want to just leave you guys a quick update regarding the census. The census, thanks to our court system actually functioning like it's supposed to, the revised deadline for making sure you get your census in is from March 12th to October 31st. So you have until the end of this month to make sure that you are counted. As ADOS people, we understand that finding a lot of our ancestors, finding our pathway back to our enslaved ancestors in particular happened with the help of the U.S. Census. And as adverse as we might be to the government and data and collecting data, it's very important for the allocation of resources that we are counted. So please get in your census. You can go to 2020census.gov. In order to record your census, and you record everyone in your household, whether you are related to them or not. So
and I just learned you can call it in too. I didn't know that, but you can call your census in too, fam. But that information, like Friday said, is on www.2020census.gov. So please go fill out your census today if you have not done so. We got to the end of October.
And we want to thank our guests. We had Torrin Walker, one of our favorite blue checks.
We had a hero.
We had Maureen Simmons.
Yep.
We had, Mark Stevens,
Tyrone
Tyrone Polk Davis, Marshall Parsons, Kelly Pryor, Michael Brown, Gerard Page, Leo Carney, Arthur Ward, bringing us everything we need to know from the north to the south to the east to the west. So we thank you, ADOS family, for showing up here today. We want to thank Miss Felicia, the poetess, running our board over here at Morris Studios. Who else we need to thank?
You covering it. You got it.
Well, if you like today's show, ring the bell, subscribe.
Yep.
If you like what we're doing, we really do try to bring a quality show. Contribute in the Super Chat. Hit us up on Cash App at $ADOSLA.
That's a wrap, Friday. I think you put a bow on it right there.
Okay, we're done.
Down ballot.
Thank you for tuning in. We will have the third part of our series in 2 weeks. That will be our last show before the November 3rd election. So please, tune into that show. We will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Peace, fam.